Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. I'm your host, Rob Z. This platform is for you to break those chains that have been holding you back in your life, personally and professionally. So I bring incredible guests on who have incredible stories of breakthrough. Today, we have Jeff Luther with us on the platform. We're talking resilience, mindset, faith, fear, and perspective. And Jeff Luther, he died and came back to life. And we're going to start there today, Jeff. What was the biggest lesson that you learned from dying?
That is such a fun question. And I've got like 5 lessons. Like there are a bunch of lessons, but I have 5 lessons. And when I talk about it, people are like, oh, what is it? You think it's so profound. Like I can tell you how angels' wings are made. The biggest lesson was asking deeper questions. Ask deeper questions if you want stronger connection. And just a quick why, when this happened to me, my 16-year-old son was watching. He watched the whole thing. He watched me go out. He watched me get shocked with an AED. It shocked me 3 times before I came back to life. He heard the flat line, the whole thing. There was no trauma for me. I just went to sleep and woke up. But he was carrying this trauma. And you would think, well, that's obvious, right? But I would ask him, I was like, Cash, are you okay? He'd say, yeah. I said, great. Cash, are you okay? He'd say, yeah. I said, great. Cash, do you want to talk to anybody? He'd say, no. I'd say, are you sure? He'd say, yeah. I said, great. I didn't have to do the work, but I learned over time he was carrying all this trauma, and there was an incident that it was just unavoidable, and I had to figure out how to connect with my son, how to get him help. And I had to just ask deeper questions. It's like, hey, do you remember when I got shocked with that AED? Yeah, I remember. Tell me more about it. Like, I really want to know. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what you saw. Tell me what it was like when they put the pads on me. And so it was about an hour conversation at the end of which I said, would you like to talk to somebody about this that can help you figure out why you're scared? And he said, yeah, I think so. I think that'd be really good. So that's my number one lesson. And I learned, you would think that's just common sense. But I learned that lesson through just acknowledgement and paying attention.
Yeah, man. Especially, I'm thinking just in my own personal life, when you're asking a question, especially to your kids, and you know that there's pain there. Sometimes you don't want to dig any further because you're going to feel the pain too.
Yes, that's why I would not ask him. I did not want to hear that my son was broken.
Yeah.
And I knew that he was. But if I just asked that surface question, I'd get my surface answer.
Yeah, and you could be okay for the day. You're like, I did my job. Right. How long did it take you of asking that question until you dug deeper?
It was almost 9 months that I let him carry it around. And
how old was he?
I'm proud of it.
How old was he at the time that this all happened?
He was 16.
Okay. That's so good, because it's something that I try to live by, and being a coach, asking deeper questions always gets a better answer and always reveals things. But I notice when it's closer to the vest, when it's closer to you, and I've also noticed for myself too, and I imagine this is how you felt. I'm curious to hear your answer on it. The reason I didn't ask him deeper, the reason I know right now, like, I need to ask deeper questions, but the reason I don't is because I'm going to feel uncomfortable. I'm going to feel sad. It's more about me than it is about my kids. Was it the same for you? Is that what it was?
The same exact thing, the same thing. And I can relate that to a lot of pieces of my life now. What I ask employees, I ask an employee, hey, are we treating you okay? What are they going to say? They're going to say, yeah, until they quit.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, that's exactly what it was for me, Rob. It was the fear of what I was going to hear. I had to I had to get past my fear, and I had to do what I call go into the danger. I had to go to the danger, and I had to get curious. And so now I do that in my business with my employees, with my kids. I really do it with my kids.
Go to the danger and get curious.
Yeah.
All right. I can tell I got a lot of notes for this episode. All right. So, before we go any further, because there's too many questions to ask right now, I just want to welcome everybody to the Unstuck movement. This platform was created for you to have breakthrough in your life if you're listening or watching right now. So these are true testimonies of breakthrough. If you're stuck somewhere in life, you can get unstuck. And I like to have, at least for me, it's always helpful to have proof that other people have gotten unstuck. So I know, oh, I can do it. It might not look exactly the same, but I know they did, so I can too. So I want this to be an example for the listener that it's possible for you. We're sponsored by the Unstuck movement. The Unstuck movement is sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Over 450 heart-centered entrepreneurs helping each other grow. And also, I want to encourage anybody right now, if you are the expert at what you do, but you want to be the go-to authority in your field, you want to launch a platform that'll create an incredible impact in other people's lives and build incredible personal and professional connections for you, I encourage you to launch your own podcast, create your platform. I'd love to help you do that. You can go to robzwentz.com and join our Pro Podcaster Academy. Today, we have Jeff Luther. Jeff died and came back, and he's here to tell the story. After surviving sudden cardiac death and a life-altering diagnosis, he rebuilt his health and mindset, proving that resilience happens 30 seconds at a time. So yeah, break that down for us. What happened when you died? How did it happen? Yeah, walk us through that to begin things.
Yeah. I'm going to take 5 seconds to build my ego first, right? So okay. It was June 5th, 2021. I'm a reformed ultra runner. So June 5th, 2021, I had a race. I was running. It was my first overnight race. It was a 50K. And it was the first time I was going to be doing one overnight, and it was through a national forest. Like it was super amazing. And just so everyone knows, I showed up to that race to win. Like I'm a fit dude. And I was only there to win. I came in second, but that helps my ego because this bruises my ego a little bit. The following Saturday, June the 12th, I was at a CrossFit gym, me and my son went to all the time, and I'm doing a partnered workout. And for anyone that's listening that's ever done a CrossFit partnered workout or high intensity interval training partnered workout, when you're with a partner, you're working really close together. Like you're counting their reps, they count your reps, so you know exactly where your partner is, what they're doing. Another thing you know about partnered workouts is if you get a little bit of an advantage on your partner, you can really bury them. And that day I was burying my son. I was really making him work. And I started getting these heart palpitations in my neck. Like I could feel my pulse in my neck. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And I was doing wall balls at the time. So then it kept going. And then it was rapid. Like, it was so rapid. I don't think I've ever had a heart rate that fast, but I could feel it. Like, it was like somebody was thumping me in the neck over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And I started to get lightheaded. So I went to a knee, and I was like, well, this will go away in a minute. And it didn't. So I went to another knee. I was like, this will go away in a minute. It didn't. And something important to note, there's a dude in the rack beside me lifting, and he put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, are you okay? And I immediately was like, man, get your hand off of me. I'm scared. I'm vulnerable. I don't know what's happening. And then immediately I was like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. I'm vulnerable. I don't know what's happening. Please don't take your hand off of me. Don't let me go. And then I was like, I've got to lay down. Everything was going black. And I just laid over on the wall ball. I laid down on the gym floor. I laid on the left side of my face. And the last thing I saw was my son's shoes, his white Metcons. They were walking towards me. And I was like, I've got to get up. Oh my gosh, I've got to get up. And I couldn't. Like my brain signal was there. Everything was there, but I had no hydraulic fluid. I couldn't move. It's not like the movies where the guy's reaching for the gun to kill the person that's chasing him. That one final thing. I couldn't do anything. So I was out. And then 8 minutes later, I was awake. And I'll give you the window of what happened in between. or well, that's it. So when I woke up, the coach was standing over me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was soaking wet and I was covered in ice, and I was like, man, and I couldn't piece together the night before, but I could piece everything together that morning. And I don't drink. I mean, I've drank in the past, like I don't, as a regular thing, I don't drink, but I know that taste when you have a really bad hangover. And so I had this horrible taste in my mouth. And I looked at the coach. I was like, man, I'm so sorry. I guess I got drunk last night and I came to class and I fainted. And he looked at me. He's like, no, that's not it. And so the EMTs were there. Like all of this is all coming together all at once. The EMTs were there. They were getting ready to put me on a stretcher. I had the pads on my chest from an AED and just started to piece my day together. But I'd been out for 8 minutes.
Let's go into the 8 minutes. What happened? By the way, I've watched hundreds of hours and read hundreds of hours of content on near-death experiences. I'm so fascinated by them. So I'm so interested in hearing this.
Okay. Yeah. So immediately people were just kind of, slapping me, trying to get me to come to. And I told you I was covered in ice. So this is in Charleston, South Carolina in June in a metal building with no air conditioning. So it's super hot and everybody just thought that I just passed out. So that went on for a little while, them trying to get me to come to, put ice on me. And then somebody thought to check to see if I had a pulse and I didn't have a pulse. So they started doing chest compressions and I was so lucky. There was a woman there she's the head of emergency response at our aquarium in Charleston. So she knew what to do. So she started doing chest compressions. And then they had an AED there, the automated external defibrillator. And somebody thought to go get that. So they got the defibrillator, put that on me. And at this point, there was actually a video of this whole thing, a video in the gym. And at this point, it had been about a little over 2 minutes. So they put the defibrillator on me. That takes a minute. It tries to find rhythm. So it didn't find any rhythm. There was no heartbeat at all. And then I guess it found electrical pulse. Something happened. And so it said clear, initiate shock. So it shocked me. And this was the first shock and everybody was around. My son was standing over me. And so it shocked me. And I learned this through asking deeper questions. And it makes you raise up off the ground. So it popped me up off the ground. Apparently it looks pretty violent to the bystanders. And then you flatline, like it gives an audible flatline or an audible tone of whatever your heart rate is. And mine, there was no pulse. So it just flatlined and everybody kind of lost it. My son lost it. Fortunately, our weightlifting coach, he and I had the same weightlifting coach at the time. She was there. She grabbed him and pulled him back because he lost it as soon as that happened. And so she grabbed him as soon as all that happened and pulled him away. And then she said, everybody stand in front of Cash so that he couldn't see what was happening. And then it said, continue to do chest compressions. So they did chest compressions. And then a minute later, it spooled again, or it searched again and found an electrical signal, shocked me again, and the same thing happened. And then it did it again another minute later, and then it shocked me again, and I came to.
Where did you go, though?
Man, it's like somebody. So I'll tell you two parts. It's like somebody turned the lights out and then they turned them back on. Like there was nothing. But when I came to, and this is the part that I'll tell what I know, but I just don't know. I was somewhere and I heard screaming, but the screaming was familiar, and it was familiar and different. And then I woke up to me screaming in the gym. Like the gym's totally silent. I remember this. I remember everything. The gym is totally silent. I wake up screaming and I sat up and people were trying to hold me down. I sat up and I stopped and I could hear my scream echoing in the gym.
Mm.
And to this day, people still say that's the most eerie scream they've heard. So I don't know the answer to that.
Wow, man. So you don't, as far as like when you went out, it was just lights out, lights back on, pop
Lights
back.
out, lights back on. That's what I tell myself. Lights out, lights back on. And you know, I mean, I'm not, to my knowledge, I'm not suppressing anything, but it seems a little unrealistic. You know, I mean, there's got to be something, right?
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows? I don't.
Maybe,
I don't
maybe,
know.
yeah. Yep.
So you talked about one of the 5 lessons that you learned, asking deeper questions. What are the other 4?
Second thing I learned. I'll try to kind of go like as I learned these. Second thing is life is not necessarily short. You know, people say life is short.
Mm-hmm.
Life got pretty long for me. There was a time very close to this incident where I was like, you know, the worst thing that happened to me was that stupid defibrillator. If they hadn't had that, I wouldn't have to worry about any of this. So life can get pretty long. Life's not always short.
A lot of recovery coming back.
No, the recovery, I had no physical issue, no physical problem at all. It was all mental. I mean, it put me in such a bad place. So my diagnosis, so I went to the hospital, of course, and I wasn't even going to go to the hospital. Went to the hospital. They did all these tests on me, couldn't figure anything out. So 3 days later, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days later, I got a diagnosis of ARVC, arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy. And that is, it damages the heart wall, and the damage is exacerbated by exercise. So I was told I would never be able to exercise again. They're like, you can't, it'll kill you, and this will be your death. And that's that's how I connect with my kids. That's how I process. That's what I do. Ultra runner, CrossFitter, that, you know, I had my whole identity wrapped up in this stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the challenge for me. It was, I couldn't do anything. Like, I'm a backwoods hunter. They told me I couldn't walk. They said, you know, I would never walk more than a half a mile from a vehicle. Like,
wow.
All this can't. It was all can't. Everything was can't.
Can you now? I assume that you're able to now.
Yes, able to now.
Do you exercise now?
I do. Yeah. The same son, he and I did for my 50th birthday. I was 48 when it happened. For my 50th birthday, he and I did a CrossFit competition together.
What changed from the can't to can?
I mean, you know, so I'll never encourage anyone to be reckless with their health. Please don't do that. I did a lot of research. I researched the disease. I found things that I could do, and I've taken mine a step further. Like I'm living probably on the edge, but I had to choose.
An ultra marathon runner, I'd say so. Probably.
I had to choose. I could either die living on the couch, or I could live dying doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that was it. I just chose to live dying instead of die living.
Wow. What's number 3?
So number 3 would be everybody's hurting. That's one thing that I learned is, you know, I got, and like, I'm telling all this stuff like I'm bragging about it. I'm not. I own it. I totally own where I was when this happened. But I was so bitter and so caught up in being a victim, and why me? I did everything right. I took care of my body, and this happened to me anyway. And I didn't, I was like, why does everybody not realize I'm hurting? And then I realized everybody's hurting. Everybody's dragging something around.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big lesson for me. That made life better for me. Not that I want to see people hurt. That's not what I mean. but to be empathetic, to have the empathy. Nobody cares what happens to you. That's another lesson. I don't mean that terse. But like when I finally, like 6 months later, when I finally started going back to the gym and trying to do little workouts here and there, people would say, oh yeah, I know how you feel. I hurt my shoulder one time. Oh yeah, I know how you feel. I couldn't work out for a month because of my ankle. They were trying to identify with me, but they couldn't get where I was.
Yeah.
Like it would be one thing if it was a kidney that was bad, like I've got this bad kidney and if it fails, then, but it was my heart. Like I need that. So people don't care what happens to you, but they do care how you respond. And I had to respond to this disease and to this diagnosis. My kids were watching me. They can't get where I was emotionally. They can't understand that piece of it, but they can see how I respond. And that could have been in any number of ways.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's and then do the damn thing. Just do the damn thing. Because you think, okay, well, I'll do it tomorrow, or well, what if I do it and somebody doesn't like it, or what if I do it and they make fun of me, or what if I do it and it doesn't work, or what if I do it and I fail? Well, what if you can't? What if you can't do it? What if you could do it today and then you can't? Mm-hmm. How does it feel if you're standing right where you are, and let's say, okay, you have something you really want to do, like you're encouraging people to start a podcast. Man, I think that's great. I think it's great to encourage people to do that. So many people won't because of that fear. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? Okay, well, how does it feel if you're sitting here listening to the same episode in 1 year from today, you're listening to the same episode and you still haven't started that podcast, but in the back of your mind somewhere, you still want to.
Mm-hmm.
Just do the damn thing, whatever it is. Go ask the girl out. Go ask the guy out. Whatever it is, just go do it.
It sounds like you were somebody who did a lot, but I'm curious how that changed you. So what was it that you weren't doing that you decided, well, damn it, I've been telling myself forever that I can't, or I'm not going to, even though I want to? Were there certain things or something big that you decided you were finally going to do?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, a podcast. I started a podcast. And I would tell myself these stories. Oh, no one wants to talk to me. Oh, that's boring. Nobody would listen. I would tell myself these stories that were all external. And I was like, okay, well, they're not listening to my podcast now. So what's going to change when I start a podcast? Like, they still won't be listening to it. And I try to frame things that way now. Apply for the job. Well, you don't have that job now. What's going to change if you apply for it and you don't get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would use a lot of external forces as excuses not to do things.
Yeah, it's really, man, so many different things in your life that you talk to yourself about that. And it's a good perspective of looking at, like, well, what if there was actually a situation where you physically couldn't do it anymore? And you could have done it all those years and you just chose not to out of fear. Why not freaking do it?
Yeah, that is exactly what happened to me. I was told I would never run again. I was told my exercise would be limited to yoga and golf. That's what I was able to do. I was told I could never lift weights again. I was told I could never work out with my son again. I was told I couldn't play spike ball in the backyard with my kids because it was competitive and would get my heart rate up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's really crazy. It's amazing. It's such a short amount of time that you bounce back to. It's only been a couple of years.
Right. Yeah. So there was I had no physical problem. They imaged my heart and they saw the damage that had been done to my heart, but otherwise nothing changed for me. can I tell you kind of where I made my breakthrough, like what happened?
Well, yes. Let's pause real quick, though, is where I was going
Okay,
to go.
yeah.
So we're going to pause, shout out the sponsor of the podcast. When we can come back, what was the major breakthrough that caused you to be where you're at now? We'll jump into that in 1 minute. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Loving this conversation, Jeff. So tell me, what was the breakthrough? What happened?
All right. So I'll back up a little bit and cut me off. Like if it gets boring, I cut me off. I sometimes get mired up in the details. So after I had my surgery, I got a defibrillator implanted while I was in the hospital. I couldn't lift a gallon of milk for 30 days, couldn't do anything for 30 days. So my 30 days is up, and my oldest son, who was with me at the time, was pushing me to go back to the gym, which, I mean, that's a red flag right there, right? Like, let's go revisit this trauma. So he's pushing me to go back to the gym. I go back, and the first time I go back, Rob, it happens again. As soon as I started, barbell complex. And I was telling you about the taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
So it happened it was like 36 seconds. My heart went into a bad rhythm, and I pulled out of it on my own, but I went faint. I had that same taste in my mouth, and that's when it changed for me. That's when death became real. Because before that, it was just this thing, I just went to sleep and I woke up.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I was like, okay, death doesn't call ahead. There's no bargaining. There's no bargaining. Death is there. And that's when it became so real. I had that same taste. So that taste is when your heart stops pumping blood. The first thing is it drains out of your head. When the blood comes back, you can taste it coming back in your mouth. I know it's very detailed, but that's what death tastes like. And I became terrified. At that moment, I became terrified. I was scared to take a shower. I was scared to walk up steps. I was scared to be alone. It was awful. And I couldn't, no one could relate to that fear. They were like, oh, well, you're here and you're fine. So then that sent me to a place where I was depressed. Then I was, because I would tell my story. People were like, oh my gosh, you must be the most grateful person alive. You must hit your knees every morning and pray and cry and all these great things happen. And I was bitter and I was angry and I was mad and I was a victim. So that made me feel like a horrible person. It's like, I should be so grateful, but I'm too busy caught up with what I lost. So then that sent me into depression. And my plan was to put my running shoes on and to run until I couldn't. Somebody was going to be wrong. Either the doctors were going to be wrong because I didn't have this disease and I was going to go run 100 miles and nothing was going to happen, or I was going to be wrong and that was going to be the last time I ran. So I was not in a good place, and I knew I had to find gratitude. Gratitude was elusive. I knew I had to figure out things to be grateful for. And I'd never really had a relationship with this. I know it sounds a little goofy, but I never really had a relationship with gratitude before. I never worried about it. You know, I would always think of it like these huge things. I'm so grateful that, you know, the tornado didn't hit my house and all this stuff, you know, but gratitude is just so small. And I was walking on the beach one day and I was like, all right, you know, I got to find gratitude. What am I grateful for? Okay, well, I'm grateful that I don't have a shellfish allergy. Okay, I can eat shrimp. I can eat blue crab. I'm grateful I don't have a shellfish allergy. And then I just kind of spiraled off. And I was like, all right, well, I can get behind that. And then, wow, that's weird. Some people have a shellfish allergy and some people don't. That's really weird. I guess everybody's body reacts differently to it. So, wait a second. Maybe my body will react differently to this disease. I mean, maybe it won't be as bad as they're telling me. Maybe I can exercise. And so then I started doing some research. I figured out some things that I could do. And I did what any smart male athlete would do. I went back to the gym. So I went back. Yeah. I mean, I'm a glutton. So I found a coach, did some research, asked if he would be willing to go to the gym with me. I had to go. So a lot of things are bad for my heart. All the endorphins, all the good things you get during exercise, all the chemicals, those are bad for my heart. So I had to figure out how to control those. I really am not supposed to keep my heart under load for extended periods of time. So I had to figure that out. So we did some research. I show up to the gym and it's a Tuesday. It was like 12:40. It was right after the 12:30 class was over. So I show up to the gym. No one is there. Lights are off. Music is off. Totally empty. And that's how I was going to work out. Nothing, no stimulus at all. So he tells me to hop on a Echo bike. So I'm on the bike for, I don't know, like a minute and a half. And my heart rate starts to go up. I'm like, oh my gosh, here it comes. I felt like Fred Sanford. Oh, yeah, Elizabeth, this is the big one. Oh my gosh, you know, here it comes. I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And it didn't. Got off the bike, did some warm-ups, some stretches, just real easy stuff. He said, all right, we're going to start. We're doing kettlebell deadlifts. We're going to do 25 deadlifts, slow. And then, you know, whatever the rest of the exercise was, I don't even remember anything beyond that. So I started and I did like 5 or 6 deadlifts and I started crying and I was terrified. Like I was an absolute mess. So I'm crying and like there's snot coming out of my nose. Like I'm bawling, crying. And he's like, what's wrong? What is it? And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. And he said, well, does it hurt? Does the defibrillator hurt? What's wrong? I said, no, I'm scared. I'm too scared. I quit. And in that instant, like I became a quitter. I totally quit. And if anybody is listening, if you have ever had that feeling, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had it because it's horrible. And if you haven't had that feeling, I hope you never do. Because it was the low point of my life. So he said, cool, you can quit, but give me 30 seconds of work. Just work for 30 seconds. And then we'll call it a day. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I quit. Like I quit. I totally quit. I'm done. He said, yeah, that's fine. I have a client at 4:00. I can wait. Just give me 30 seconds of work and we'll quit. We'll end on a good note. And so we went back and forth. And I'm still crying. I'm wiping snot off my face. I'm a total mess. And finally, I was like, all right, yeah, I'll do it. And you watch, something bad is going to happen. So I did it. I picked up the kettlebells, did 30 seconds of work, stopped. He said, that's it, man. That's amazing. You just won. You did it. So I stood there for a second. I said, I think I can do another 30 seconds. He's like, yeah, do it. Another 30 seconds. So I did it. I did another 30 seconds and stopped. He said, that's amazing. That is a total win. We're done. It's like, you know what, man? I think I can do another 30 seconds. He said, okay, well, let's do this. Do 30 seconds on and 30 seconds off. And we'll just see how you feel and see how far you can go. and I did the whole workout. I did the whole thing 30 seconds at a time, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And as quickly as I quit, as quickly as I became a quitter, I found my life. I was like, oh my gosh, I just chose to take control. And from that point, I knew that everything was going to be my choice. And that was like, what he did for me was one of the most amazing things anybody could ever do for anyone. It was awesome. And that was the total breakthrough.
That coaching, just that pushing. And wasn't he scared that you were going to die? He knew your history, right?
He was terrified. Yeah, he was terrified. But we knew everything. He knew that I had the defibrillator. He knew that worst comes to worst, I'll just get shocked and it'll shock me out of a bad rhythm. And he said, I was terrified. And then when you started arguing with me, I didn't know what to do. So I just dug in. I mean, we both just dug in. And it's like, I was going to make you get 30 seconds. Yeah,
I love that, man. So 30 seconds, that's kind of like you've applied that to your life, the 30 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, I do. So I do a talk about it, 30 seconds at a time. I mean, things that we don't want to do, things that we're scared of, things that we've put off, just give it 30 seconds. And then once you give it 30 seconds, you're already invested. It's like, so now I have a running rule. I won't decide if I'm going to run or not until my clothes are on and my shoes are tied. Then I can decide. Then I'll choose. Because then if you're not going to run, then you're just a quitter because you've already started, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's making yourself do something because you're right there at the edge of doing it. So how could you back out at that point?
Yeah.
Oh man, how crazy. How has this just kind of like trickled out into your your relationships? And I'm always curious with people who've had experiences like this, your walk with God, your walk with the people in your life, just you said about gratitude and like how it kind of changes your day-to-day life. How did things shift moving forward, especially now a couple of years out? Has there been like a dramatic shift in just who you are as a person?
Yeah, for sure. There's, how your perspective changes. Everything kind of changes. It's you think there's this big profound thing, but it's all these little shifts, all these little pieces. Like, with people now, I want to know about people. Like, and the reason is because a lot of times we talk to people and say, oh, how you doing? And they say, oh, great. That's what we want to hear. Just like to your point earlier, what you were talking about, we want to hear that they're great because then we're not going to be bothered by whatever it is that they're doing, or whatever it is that's going wrong in their life. Then we don't have to deal with it. But if they start telling us, oh, I've got this thing and I got in a fight with my daughter, we're like, whoa. So now I'll ask, I'm like, how's the day treating you? How's your day going? How's life? I will ask strangers, how's the day treating you? And they'll say, oh, well, it's good. And I'll say, all right, 1 to 10, what is it? It's a 6. Like a 6. It can't be a 6. Like how are we going to make it a 7? That's one of the biggest differences for me.
That's a great question to ask people, by the way.
Yeah, it's so fun. Like what's keeping it from being a 7, and what can I do to help? Right. Like yesterday, so ironically, I got an echocardiogram done yesterday. It's an annual thing that I do. And I'm walking back with a technician. Like, how's your day going? Oh, it's okay. It's like, well, you're really busy. Well, not really. Well, if you're not busy, is that good or is that bad? She's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, all right, 1 to 10, what's your day like? And she said a 6. It's like a 6. What do you mean a 6? Like, you just told me it was good. 6 isn't good. That's like mediocre at best. Well, my kids left this morning mad when they were going to school because I didn't have breakfast made. Like, all right, well, do you want to own that or do they own that? They're not old enough to make breakfast? It's just, well, yeah, you're right, but it just bothers me. So, by the time I leave, like 1 to 10, what is it? She's like, all right, it's a 7. And she may be lying, but I still felt better.
Hey, man, I love that. It's so It's easy not to talk to people. It's easy not to like get involved because you know you've got your own thing going on. You've got your own time. You've got your own concerns. But when you really start to like dig into people's lives and show that you genuinely are interested, it changes how the world responds to you and the relationships that you build. And also it shows the question 1 to 10. It's a fun question to ask.
Yeah.
It's a fun question because people have to put a number to it. And then you got to be like, well, why do you put that number to it? What's causing it to be there? And then they asking them what could be better about it is so good because it puts in perspective, like, how could I make my day better? And if we ask ourselves these questions, our personal lives get better. But when you're walking around just filling people up like that and just making them think, because, you know, I'm sure you still do this. I know I do this, and I know everybody kind of does it to some extent. You can float through your day and not really think about how you're doing. You're just kind of dealing with the day. And if you track when somebody asks you where your day is at on a scale of 1 to 10, now you've got to like assess your day and like kind of map out where is it, why is it, and then how could it be better? Most people never even ask themselves that question.
Right. I'll play that game with my kids. I think this is a fun one too. Is like, you know, how's your day going? Or, man, I wish I could think of a good example, but it's like, how was the test? The test sucked. I don't even know what I did on it, but it was horrible. Really, it was horrible. So if there was something good about it, what would it be? You know, so I'll flip it on them. Like, how's your day? Oh, it's horrible. I was late. It was raining, and I lost my pencil. Really horrible day. So if there was one thing great about it, what could it have been? And so then then they think, okay, well, what are they going to say? You know, I found the end of the rainbow and there was a pot of gold. You know, they usually find something relatable to make it incrementally better.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's such a simple piece of advice that can be really profound, applied throughout your day, every day.
Yeah.
Pile that on top of itself, and it can really have some massive change. So as we come to the end of this, Jeff, by the way, really enjoy this conversation and just the fact that you share this message. So I want people to connect with you so they can find you on LinkedIn. Just search Jeff Luther. If you're watching, you can see the tag up on the screen right there. I want to encourage everybody also, if you want to launch that podcast, do the thing you've been thinking about doing, become the authority in your space. You can do that by joining the Pro Podcaster Academy at robzwentz.com. Anything you want to share with the audience we haven't touched on before we sign off?
Yeah, the podcast, man. Just do the damn thing. I will add that in all of this, you know, when we fall, our ego falls a lot further and a lot harder than we do. And sometimes we're attached to our ego. And it took me down to a pretty dark place. And I was, you know, I was able to choose, but I'll extend this to anybody. I'm an excellent listener. I've been contacted by a lot of folks through like my Instagram, my LinkedIn, through this heart disease, people that have had these diagnoses, and it's a lot of times prominent endurance athletes. Reach out. I'm a great listener. I'm happy to talk, happy to share my experience, but do not suffer in silence. That's a lonely place.
Yeah. And have examples. That's the whole point of this podcast. Have examples of breakthrough, because it's possible for you to find that same breakthrough, even if it's not in a health related issue, in anything in life. You find somebody that's had breakthrough, it can show you, you might be inspired by it. You might get a practical example of something you can do, but you're going to be moved by it, and it's going to help you to move in the right direction.
Yeah. Yep.
So thanks, man. Thank you, Jeff, for what you do. Appreciate it, man. Another true testimony of breakthrough here on the podcast. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck Movement.